You're scrolling through your banking app at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, and you see it, $847.32 in your checking account. Not terrible, you think, not great either. You've got rent coming up in 2 weeks, a car payment that's going to hit next Friday, and honestly, you're not even sure what you spent money on this week. It just disappeared. You tell yourself you'll get serious about saving next month, or maybe after you get that raise, or after you pay off that credit card. There's always something, right? Some financial hurdle that justifies why now isn't the perfect time to really buckle down and build something meaningful with your money. And here's the thing. I get it. My name is Adam, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, financial psychology, and why some people seem to break through to financial security while others stay trapped in this exhausting cycle of almost enough for years on end. And what I've noticed, what really fascinates me, is that there's this specific threshold, this exact moment in someone's financial journey where everything shifts. Not just the numbers in their account, but the entire way they think about money, risk, opportunity, and their own future. That number is $25,000. Now, I know what you're thinking. $25,000? That's oddly specific. Why not 50,000 or 100,000? Or why not just say when you have money saved? Because here's what I've observed over and over again. Getting to that first $25,000 fundamentally rewires how your brain processes financial decisions in a way that no other milestone quite matches. It's not just about having a cushion, though that's part of it. It's about crossing over from one financial reality into an entirely different one. From playing defense to finally being able to think about offense. And if you stick with me here, I want to show you why this number matters so much, what actually changes in your psychology when you reach it, and more importantly, how understanding this shift can accelerate your own journey, whether you're at $500 saved or $15,000 or anywhere in between. The poverty tax you don't even notice. Let's start with something that doesn't get talked about enough. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, when you've got less than a few $1,000s in your account at any given time, you're basically paying an invisible tax on everything. I call it the poverty tax, and it's brutal. Think about it. You can't buy in bulk because you don't have the cash flow to drop $150 at Costco, even though you know it would save you money over the next 3 months. You can't pay your car insurance annually to get the discount. You've got to do monthly payments with that extra fee tacked on. You overdraft your account because a bill hit 1 day earlier than you expected, and boom, there's $35 gone. You can't invest in that tool or course or certification that might boost your income because you need every dollar for immediate expenses. It's like being charged extra for the privilege of having less money, you know? And the psychological weight of that is crushing. Every financial decision becomes a tightrope walk. Do I fix my car now or wait another month and hope it doesn't break down completely? Do I go to the dentist for this tooth pain or just hope it goes away? I remember talking to a friend a few years ago who was making decent money, probably $50,000 a year, but had zero savings. And he told me this story about how his laptop died, the one he needed for work, and he had to put a new one on a credit card at 22% interest. He said, "I'm literally paying $200 extra for this computer just because I didn't have $1,200 in my account when I needed it." That's the poverty tax in action. When you don't have that buffer, that cushion, you make worse financial decisions not because you're stupid or irresponsible, but because you don't have the luxury of making better ones. You're in constant reaction mode. And here's the thing, this isn't just about money. It's cognitive load, it's mental bandwidth. Studies have shown that financial stress literally reduces your IQ temporarily. You're using so much mental energy just managing the stress of your financial situation that you have less brain power for everything else. The shift from scarcity to possibility. So what happens when you hit that $25,000 mark? What actually changes? First, and this is huge, you stop making decisions from a place of fear. Let me explain what I mean. When you've got $800 in your account and your car makes a weird noise, your immediate thought is panic. Please don't be expensive. Please don't be expensive. Please don't be expensive. You're terrified. You might ignore it, hope it goes away, because the alternative, a $1,500 repair, feels apocalyptic. When you've got $25,000 saved, you hear that same noise and you think, ugh, annoying, better get it checked out. Same problem, completely different emotional response. You're not afraid, you're inconvenienced, sure, but you're not existentially threatened by a car repair. And that shift from fear to mild annoyance is psychological liberation. Suddenly, you can think clearly. You can make rational decisions. You can shop around for the best mechanic instead of just taking it to the first place that can see you today because you're desperate. But it goes deeper than that. With $25,000, you start to see opportunities instead of just threats. Someone mentions a career opportunity in another city. Instead of immediately thinking, I can't afford to move, you think, what would that look like? A friend wants to start a side business and needs a small investment. Instead of automatically saying no, you can actually evaluate if it's a good idea. Your entire orientation toward the future changes. You go from trying to survive the next 2 weeks to actually being able to plan for the next 6 months, the next year. You can think strategically instead of just tactically. I've noticed this in my own life, honestly. Before I had meaningful savings, I turned down opportunities constantly. Not because they were bad opportunities, but because they felt risky and I was living too close to the edge to take any risks. I stayed in jobs I hated because I couldn't afford the gap between paychecks if I switched careers. I didn't negotiate for raises as aggressively because some part of my brain was terrified of being fired and not having a buffer. Once I crossed that threshold, everything felt different. I negotiated harder because I knew I had a runway. I took calculated risks because I had something to fall back on. I invested in myself, courses, books, tools, because I could see beyond the next emergency. The compound effect of not being desperate. Here's something that doesn't get enough attention. Desperation makes you expensive to yourself. When you're desperate for a job, you take the first offer. You don't negotiate. You accept lowball salaries because you need money now. When you're desperate to rent an apartment, you take the first place that approves you, even if it's overpriced or in a bad location. When you're desperate for credit, you accept predatory interest rates. Desperation eliminates your negotiating power in every single transaction in your life. And over time, over years and decades, this costs you hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm not exaggerating. The person who negotiates their salary up by $5,000 early in their career and then gets percentage-based raises on that higher number for 30 years will make literally hundreds of thousands more than someone who accepted the first offer. Same person, same skills, different financial position when negotiating. But when you've got $25,000 saved, you're not desperate. You can walk away from bad deals. You can wait for the right opportunity. You can say no until you hear yes on your terms. I watched this play out with a colleague once. She was interviewing for a new position and they offered her $65,000. She wanted $75,000. In her previous financial life, when she was living paycheck to paycheck, she would have said yes immediately. But she had built up savings. She had runway. So she said, "Thank you for the offer. I'm looking for something closer to $75,000 based on my experience and market rates. Can we discuss that?" And you know what happens? They came back at $72,000. She negotiated and got $73,500. That's $8,500 more per year, just because she wasn't desperate. That's the power of having a buffer. It literally makes you more valuable because you can advocate for your actual value instead of just taking whatever you can get. Money makes money, but only after you have some. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. There's this snowball effect that kicks in once you hit a certain threshold of savings, and $25,000 seems to be right around where it starts to accelerate dramatically. When you've got $1,000 saved, you can't really do much with it. You need to keep it liquid for emergencies. It's basically just sitting there in a savings account earning, 0.5% interest? Maybe 4% if you've got a high yield account. That's $40 a year. Better than nothing, but not life-changing. When you've got $25,000, suddenly you have options. You can keep $5,000 in a high-yield savings account for immediate emergencies. You can put $15,000 in a diversified index fund. You can put $5,000 in a Roth IRA, or whatever allocation makes sense for your situation. Point is, you can start actually investing instead of just saving. And here's the thing about investing. It compounds. If you invest $20,000 and get an average 8% annual return, that's $1,600 the first year, without you doing anything, without you working for it. That's $1,600 you didn't have to trade hours of your life for. And the next year, you're earning returns on $21,600. So you make $1,728, then $1,866. It accelerates. But more importantly than the actual returns, having money in the market changes your relationship with money entirely. You start paying attention to different things. You learn about asset allocation, diversification, risk management. You start thinking long-term instead of just month to month. You become someone who understands how wealth is actually built, not just earned. I remember when I first invested a significant amount of money. Not $25,000, but close to it. I spent the first week checking my portfolio every few hours, watching it go up and down by $50 or $100, feeling anxious. Then I realized something. This is going to fluctuate. Sometimes I'll be up, sometimes I'll be down. But over 10 or 20 years, historically, the market trends upward. And something clicked. I stopped thinking about money as something I had to protect and started thinking about it as something that could work for me. That mental shift is profound. You go from being a consumer of money to being a steward of capital. You start making different decisions. Instead of thinking, what can I buy? You start thinking, what can I build? The confidence spiral. There's this psychological phenomenon I've noticed, and I don't know if there's an official term for it, but I call it the confidence spiral. And it works like this. When you save your first $1,000, you prove to yourself that you can save. That's huge. That's evidence that contradicts a story you might have been telling yourself, that you're bad with money, that you'll never get ahead, that saving is impossible for someone like you. But $1,000 is still a bit fragile, right? One emergency and it's gone. So you don't fully trust it. You don't fully trust yourself yet. When you get to $5,000, you start to really believe it. You're like, okay, this is real. I can actually do this. Your identity begins to shift. You start seeing yourself as someone who saves, someone who has their finances together. But $25,000? That's undeniable proof. That's not luck. That's not a one-time windfall. That's sustained behavior over months or years. That's discipline made visible. And when you see that number in your account, something changes in how you see yourself. You start to think, if I can do this, what else can I do? If I can save $25,000, can I save $50,000? Can I start a business? Can I invest in real estate? Can I retire early? The goal starts to shift from survive to thrive. And that's when things get really interesting, because you start playing a completely different game. You're not trying to avoid losing anymore. You're trying to win. And here's the beautiful part. This confidence spills over into other areas of your life. I've seen this over and over again. People who finally get their finances in order suddenly start exercising more, or pursuing that career change they've been thinking about, or ending a relationship that wasn't working. It's like financial stability gives you the foundation to fix everything else that's been wobbly in your life. The dark side nobody talks about. Okay, real talk for a second. I need to mention something that people don't often discuss about this journey to $25,000, because it's not all sunshine and empowerment. It can be incredibly lonely and frustrating. You're going to be saying no to things, a lot of things. Your friends are going out for dinner and drinks every weekend, and you're meal prepping chicken and rice. They're booking weekend trips, and you're staying home. They're upgrading their phones and their cars and their wardrobes, and you're driving the same old car and wearing the same old clothes because you're on a mission. And here's the thing, they're not going to understand. They're going to think you're cheap or boring, or they're going to make jokes about how you're too good for them now because you don't want to blow $80 on brunch. Some of them might even get weirdly resentful because your discipline makes them feel bad about their own financial choices. This is hard, I'm not going to lie to you. There were months, honestly years, where I felt completely out of sync with everyone around me, where I questioned whether I was being too extreme, whether I should just live a little and stop being so obsessive about saving. But here's what I learned. The people who make it to that $25,000, who break through to the other side, are the ones who can hold the vision even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's socially awkward, even when they feel like they're missing out. Because you know what? You're not missing out. You're opting out. There's a difference. Missing out implies you want to be there but can't. Opting out means you've made a choice that aligns with your values and your future. You're trading temporary pleasure for permanent stability. And let me tell you, once you hit that $25,000, once you feel that security, you'll realize that the $80 brunch was never worth it. The weekend trips that went on credit cards were never worth it. The temporary dopamine hit of buying something new was never worth it, because you'll have something better: peace of mind. The timeline question. So let's address the elephant in the room. How long does it actually take to save $25,000? And the answer is, it depends. I know. That's the most annoying answer possible, but it's true. If you can save $500 a month, you'll get there in 50 months. That's just over 4 years. If you can save $1,000 a month, you'll get there in just over 2 years. If you can only save $200 a month, it'll take you 10.5 years. But here's what matters more than the timeline: the trajectory. Are you moving in the right direction? Are you saving more this month than last month? Are you learning, adapting, optimizing? Are you increasing your income, cutting your expenses, or both? Because the journey to $25,000 isn't really about the destination. I mean, it is, but it's also about becoming the kind of person who can save $25,000. It's about building the habits, the discipline, the knowledge that will serve you for the rest of your life. I've seen people save $25,000 in a year by being absolutely ruthless, living with roommates, working side hustles, cutting every possible expense. And I've seen people take 8 years because they were balancing other priorities, like paying off debt, or supporting family, or dealing with health issues. There's no right timeline. There's only your timeline. What matters is that you start, that you commit, that you make it non-negotiable. Because every dollar you save is a dollar of freedom. Every month that passes is a month closer to financial security. What changes after you hit it? All right, so let's say you do it. You hit $25,000. What actually changes? Practically speaking, you have options. You can take a calculator risk on a career change. You can handle a major emergency without going into debt. You can invest in opportunities when they arise. You can negotiate from a position of strength. But honestly, the practical stuff isn't even the most important part. What really changes is your nervous system. You're calmer. You sleep better. You stop checking your bank account with that low-level anxiety that used to follow you everywhere. You stop having that sinking feeling when an unexpected expense comes up. You start to trust yourself. Trust that you can handle whatever comes. Trust that you're gonna be okay. And here's the beautiful irony. Once you have $25,000, you realize that the number itself isn't that important. Like, yes, it's important, but what's more important is the person you became to get there. The discipline, the patience, the delayed gratification. Those qualities are now part of who you are, and they're going to serve you in every area of your life. You've proven to yourself that you can set a massive goal and achieve it, that you can sacrifice short-term pleasure for long-term gain, that you can change your financial trajectory through consistent, intentional action. And once you know that about yourself, there's basically nothing you can't do. The path forward. Look, I know $25,000 can seem impossible if you're starting from zero, or from negative if you've got debt. I get it. It's a mountain, a huge, intimidating mountain. But here's the thing about mountains. You don't climb them all at once. You take one step, then another step, then another. Your first goal isn't $25,000. It's $1,000. Just get to $1,000. Prove to yourself that you can do it. Then get to $2,500, then $5,000, then $10,000. Each milestone builds on the last. each one gives you more confidence, more momentum, more proof that you're capable of doing this. And yeah, it's going to be hard. There are going to be setbacks, emergencies that drain your savings, moments where you want to give up, months where you feel like you're not making any progress. But if you stay committed, if you keep going, you will get there. And when you do, you'll understand what I'm talking about. You'll feel that shift, that fundamental change in how you think about money, about yourself, about your future. Because $25,000 isn't just a number in your bank account. It's proof that you can take control of your financial life. It's evidence that you're not a victim of your circumstances, that you have agency, that you can build the life you want. And once you have that, everything else becomes possible. So start today. Start with $50. Start with $100. Start with whatever you can and build from there. Because every single dollar you save is a vote for the person you're becoming. Every single sacrifice is an investment in your future self. And your future self is going to thank you for it. Trust me on that.